A very warm welcome to all of the members in our today's VCM. Today's VCM is very important for all of us. Today's session will provide us practical experience in CSR world for implementing the projects. For the topic case study on CSR project implementation, our speaker is Dr. Suresh Reddy. He is head of a not-for-profit organization, namely SRF Foundation. He has a vast experience of 24 years by associating with academic, government, not-for-profit, and corporation foundations. He has so far worked for Dr. Reddy's Foundation, Hyderabad, Care India International NGO, New Delhi, and State Council of Educational Research and Training, New Delhi. Dr. Reddy is a specialist in school education, vocational skill, and a very practical CSR leader. With his impeccable contribution, SRF Foundation stands today as one of the respectable development agency in the country with its contribution in area of school education and vocational skills impacting lives of so many students directly and indirectly and more than 5,000 youth spread across 12 states of India. With a brief introduction, I would request Dr. Suresh Reddy to take over the session. So,
Yeah. Thank you, Shakun. It is always pleasure meeting you and your team and all your participants. And good afternoon to all the participants from different the parts of the country. And what I heard before the session from the Sonali is saying that you're all started accountants and completed the course, and some are working with some companies, some are doing your own practice and kind of thing. And it is an opportunity to talk to you, about the SRF Foundation, its efforts, and you are being a chartered accountant, and so as an individual, as a part of any company, you may be looking up their CSR, how it is going on, and how much money they're spending it, how it is spending, what are the CSR rules and kind of thing, how actually CSR should happen on the ground, and while implementing the program. So what are the things one has to look at it, how to implement, and all those things, we'll be discussing today here. We have a couple of hours time from 2 to 4 o'clock. And so I suggest that, you people can whatever the things you want to understand, you can note down in the points, in between. If you want to stop me and pose that query, and also you're most welcome. And so just feel free to actively participate in the this 2 hour session, rather than I am talking all the time, just you are listening, that won't be a good session. So keep those things in mind, and I am here to, as much as to address all of your the queries, and also share the things what we have been doing in more in detail passion. Thank you. So to begin with, just I'm using the PPT to share with you. Just a minute. Yeah. So I hope you can see the screen. Yes.
yes, sir.
So to begin with, the SRF. The SRF, it stands for the Sri Ram Fibers. Once upon a time. Today, we are not calling it Sri Ram Fibers. We simply say SRF. The reason is that the business has gone beyond fibers to the packaging film and chemicals, engineering plastics. So the business has been diversified and beyond fibers, and we simply call it as a SRF, unless until somebody asks what SRF stands for. What we say Shriram Fibers, otherwise it is a simply SRF. And come to the company organization point of view, it is a manufacturing company, and have the head office here in Gurgaon, and have the plants in India, as well as Thailand, South Africa, and Hungary in Europe. We have 14 plants altogether, out of which the 11 plants are in India and rest are the foreign countries, with a turnover of 7,000 crores. This turnover little bit has gone up recently, and the workforce around 7,000 globally. We also known as there is an offshoot of the Delhi cloth mills. This is the oldest industry in North India, way back in 1890s, 1880s. That point of time, the DCM was started in India, and over a period of time, especially in the later part of the 19th century, 20th century, that is late 1980s and early 1990s, and the family has been split, as well as the business, especially SRF started in 1970, around that time. And this business is being managed by a family called Mr. Arun Bharatram and his children, Mr. Ashish and Karthik Bharatram. So Arun Bharatram is the chairman, and Mr. Ashish and Karthik Bharatram are the MD and DMD. And this family, is also known as connected to the Lady Shriram College that is there in Delhi, the Shriram schools which are there in Delhi and Gurgaon, and the winners of the two Deming prizes, that which is Deming prizes, one can get in the area of the total quality TQM, total quality management in the manufacturing process. So SRF known as with these institutions, with these achievements as well. And when when you see the just a minute, when you see that legacy, when you see the legacy here, so you see the gentleman on the extreme left side at top, Mr. Lala Shriram. He was the founder of the DCM, the way back in 1980s, sorry, 1880s. And he has three children. One is the Sharat Ram and Dr. Bharat Ram and Chakradhar. Out of these three, Dr. Bharatram, he is one of his three sons, and he was the one pioneer taking the DCM into the next level, and also the starting of the SRF as well. And as I mentioned in the previous slide also, these are the Lady Shriram College and the Art and Culture, Center of Art and Culture, the Shriram schools, the nurse promotion of the golf sports also. The part of the legacy of this the family and this group. When come to the SRF Foundation, so SRF Foundation is a CSR arm of SRF Limited, and to take care of the SRF's the community projects. This SRF Foundation look after these things, and I am the director of the SRF Foundation. And since 2009, so for last 12 plus years, I have been leading the SRF Foundation. Prior to the SRF Foundation, I was with Bairaju Foundation in Hyderabad. That was the family foundation of Mr. Satyam Ramlingaraju. So there around 7-8 years I was there. Prior to that, a short stint with Dr. Reddy's Foundation, again in Hyderabad. Before that, I was here in Delhi with the Care India International NGO, working in UP, Rajasthan, and Gujarat through local NGOs as a part of the government education sector. Before that, there is an agency called SCERT, like NCERT for nation. For every state, there is an SCERT. For the Delhi government, there is an SCERT here in Defense Colony. I was part of that. And some years I used to work as a lecturer in remote villages in Andhra Pradesh. That was my journey. But with the SRF Foundation, for last 12 plus years, I am heading this organization. So when come to the what SRF Foundation does, when I say SRF Foundation, it works in a couple of areas. One is called the quality education, and the other one is the vocational skills, we say training. So we focus our efforts and energies in these two segments: school education and vocational skills, targeting the children and the youth. So from the different sections of the society belong to the deprived sections or marginalized sections. So, and to achieve their individual aspirations and build a better society through knowledge, skills, and the values. This is our mission statement. And as we stated in the mission, in the statement, the same thing reflect in our action on the ground when we're doing something for these children and the youth. When you see our journey, when you say journey, today we are in 2021, and it started its journey in 1982. So almost all 39 years ago. So this organization has been set up by the SRF company, and it was originally known as the Society for Education and Welfare. It was the original name of the organization, and this name continued till 2007. In 2007, the name was renamed as SRF Foundation to align with the company's name, that is SRF Limited. But otherwise, as an organization, it has been there since 1982. So, in due course, in 1980, this organization has been doing a lot of checkbook charity, the philanthropy, responding to the natural calamities, and promoting the education through scholarships, promoting the fine arts. So all these things are happening in a sporadic way till 2009. From 1982 to 2009, these things are happening, but happening in a sporadic and ad hoc way. Apart from setting up of the Shriram School, first Shriram School in Vasanta Vihar in Delhi. So now today we have two Shriram schools in three campuses, one campus in Delhi and two campuses here in Gurgaon. Total two schools in three campuses are operational under the SRF Foundation. But these schools are not our CSR initiatives. So these schools are the self-financial model. It's a fee model, and the students pay the fee, and schools provide the quality education. But they are operational under the SRF Foundation. As I mentioned, while things are going on in 1991, this was the first our CSR program in a structured one called SRF Vidyalaya. This school was started in Chennai in 1991 for the deprived children of the people living around our first plant, that is the TTB plant in Manali at Chennai. So this school was started in 1991, and the school is still operational. So this is almost all a 30 years old school. That is our first CSR initiative, I can say. Even that point of time, there was no CSR rules and Section 135, all those things. Say, what is it called? Schedule 7. All those things are not there. This is purely driven by the business need and the need of the local area. This initiative was started. And in 2009, that is the year when I joined SRF Foundation as its director, that point of time, the management was thinking of how we can set up how we can nurture the SRF Foundation as an implementing organization and doing the programs in a structured and systematic way. So from that point of view, this when people were recruited to lead this initiative, when I joined, the management said that so our focus is the education and vocational skills as stated in the mission statement. So this is up to you how we can drive it, take it forward. The company's interest. Even in 2009, there was no CSR rules. There is no New Companies Act which demands that the mandatory CSR kind of thing. But still, it is a voluntary in nature, and the company wanted to do and do through its CSR arm. That is how our journey started in 2009 as an implementing agency, and we started our first program in a place called Mewat. So our head office is in Gurgaon, which is part of NCR region, National Capital Region of Delhi. And Mewat is close to Gurgaon, 50 kilometers away. And this place, typically rural area, and also the minority district, and the lagging behind the social development, either it is the literacy rate or women literacy rate, as economic indicators, or the infrastructure facilities point of view, agriculture production. In every respect, the district has been lagging behind. So that is the place we have chosen to start work there in 2009. That is called Mewat Rural Education Program, Mewat rural vocational education program. These two programs we started in 2009 in at Mewat. So today, after 12 plus years, so where we are, this program of Mewat, this is why always we say that our Mewat location is our test bed. Whatever we do the first thing there and take it to the next location kind of thing. Today we have been working across 12 states in 24 locations. We have the 24 local project sites which are spread across 12 states. So you can see this map where this map depicts that our presence in those the states, and it's the journey we made in last 2 years of time. In between, in 2014, where the new Companies Act of 2013 came into effect, as per CSR point of view, came into effect from 1st April 2014. So when this new CSR rules came, and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and as per this act, asking the companies to do the allocate 2% of the average profit of the company of last 3 years towards the CSR. So the allocation is the mandatory. They made it, and it was not the case earlier. Earlier, it was happening purely on the interest of the company on a voluntary basis. So when this was happened at SRF also, before 2014, this CSR has been happening at multiple levels. One is through SRF Foundation at Mewat area, that is where we began 2009, and also SRF as having the four different kind of business verticals, and each business vertical is headed by a CEO and its own separate accounts, those things and teams and plans, everything. So it is a company itself, but they're all under one operation of the one company called SRF. So each vertical also doing something on their own at plant locations. And the third thing is about the SRF is a promoter driven company. The promoters also doing something from their end as well. So in this in 2014, what happened? We all consolidated. So whatever things are happening at the foundation level, at a business level, at a promoters level, so everything is consolidated, rooted through SRF Foundation. There is only a single entity which can take responsibility of the SRF CSR. That was the structural change, adjustment we brought in when this new Companies Act came into effect and CSR rules from 1st April 2014. That was the change. And while we are carrying our project across the our plant locations and beyond also, SRF Foundation also started playing a dual role. So as I mentioned in our first slide, saying that SRF Foundation is the CSR arm of SRF company. So this has the one role. It has to execute its parental CSR programs. The second role it has been playing that it is implementing the program for other companies as well, not limiting to its parental company. So because of that, playing a dual role, and today we scaled up this program to the 24 location, 12 states. When they say this reach, it is not only the reach of only SRF CSR, but also the CSR of other companies, which I will be talking about in next few slides. That is how the journey started as I'm here today. Maybe down the line, next 5 years of time, next 10 years of time, we may be covering the entire country, and we are everywhere. Our foothold will be there, and by scaling up the program, by bringing the new partners as well. So when you do the program for the school education, we try to address the gaps in the school system. So we don't set up in new schools. We try to work with the existing government schools. When you say government schools, there are three kinds of schools are there. One is the school set up by the central government, like Navodaya Vidyalayas, Kendriya Vidyalayas. These are two kinds. There's a third kind is that the school set up by the respective state governments like Punjab or Haryana or Delhi or Andhra or Assam or Gujarat, like that. Every state education department set up their own schools. They are the more in number. So when we work with the schools, we adapt these government schools in a cluster of villages. Today we are working with almost all 480 government schools spread in these 24 locations. So we adapt these schools and try to address the gaps in the system. When I say gaps in the system, we call them as if they don't have the toilets, if how to create the toilets and make them functional. Talking about the drinking water facilities, talking about the furniture for the school children, the teachers to sit. Also talking about the sports facilities, the green boards, school beautification, building as a learning aid, bala paintings, teacher training, and out of school children identifying, mobilizing them, bring them to school. And also we're talking about digital based education, as we are living in 21st century, how we would all witness that during the COVID, how the schools were shut and education was suffered, especially in government schools. I'm not talking about the high-end private schools where that thing was happening, except the physical presence was not there, but online was happening. But government schools where children have not having the digital platforms and connectivity, all those things, they suffered a lot. So how to equip the schools with digital platforms and connectivity, that we started even before COVID also. Those are the things. And also leadership among the school headmaster, among the school children, the school management committee, local panchayat sarpanches. That is called leadership transformation, we call it as. So by addressing the physical gaps in the system, academic gaps, digital gaps, and leadership gaps, we try to transform those schools as a model schools over a period of time and provide the holistic development opportunities for the children who are studying there. So this is how we see the schools when we talk about the school education program. I will give more details about what we do there by showing some of the pictures, and you get an idea about what is actually happening on the ground. And what is the strategy we follow? When I say strategy, so the government is our natural partner because we work with the government schools. So government is our natural partner. When I say we work in 24 locations, 12 states, with all 12 state education departments, either we have the memorandum of understanding to work with those schools, or we may have the agreement, or we may have the permission from the government to work in those schools, depending upon the state to state. Each state has its own kind of a system to engage the CSR organizations or NGOs. So following that system process, we have either MOU or agreement or permission with us before starting up the program in those selected government schools. So government is our natural partner. While working with the government, we don't take any single rupee from the government department. That is our policy. So we use that government schools to support them, but not taking any money from the government. If government is contributing anything to the school, that they can directly contribute to the school rather than anything contribution to the SRF Foundation, that we facilitate. So if there is any classroom shortage is there, if there is any teacher shortage is there, if there is any support required for school, which is government has a scheme kind of thing, we try to mobilize those schemes and directly government can sanction to the school. That facilitation we can do apart from the contributions from outside of finances and the knowledge and the know-how. So this is what we do with the government. Government is a natural partner. The second one is to talk about the industry. When you say industry means the other companies like SRF, we have the focus on education and skilling. Like some other companies, they may also have the focus of the education, not necessarily education, many other things also, but those are the companies the focus of education. And if they see any synergy between what we have been doing, what they intend to do, so we try to see that collaborations with them. Here in this case also, we don't approach any company asking them to come and work with us. Rather than we focus our energy on the execution, implementation. Implementation is the toughest job. So how to implement and the systems of the process, the ideas, and the quality of the program, the cost effectiveness, and the cycle of the program execution. So these are the things we focus more our energy and kind of thing. So we work upon that. So we build a partnership with other companies as well by doing their programs. The third thing is about NGOs and foundations. In some places, we may not have the capability of executing the program. So in that such case, we try to engage other agency which is having the capacities to do the program, but it is very minuscule level. So one program we have called a Natural Resource Management Project. It's called NRM project, which is operational at a place called Bhiwadi in Rajasthan. So to execute this program, we had a local NGO which is having the capacity of promoting the sustainable livelihoods through the watersheds, all those things. So that program to do, we have an NGO to implement program for us. Otherwise, we ourselves implement the programs. Next, academic institutions. So when you say academic institutions, so like EKAI is an institution which offers the courses to the people who are pursuing chartered accountant course, and also those who completed the course. For them also offer some kind of sessions like today's session like that, and also some management colleges like Port School of Management. There is MDI in Gurgaon. There is a IMI in there in Delhi, BIMTech in Noida. So these are the academic institutions. With them also, we take some sessions on the CSR, and as a part of their course, they want to impart the CSR education to the students. We take courses, and also they do some kind of internship with us to get hands-on experience, and also they visit the project sites to see things, how the CSR happens. So this is the collaboration with the academic institutions we have, and a local community. When I say local community, the people with whom we work. For example, in a village, a school is there. So the headmaster, the teachers, the children, the sarpanch, the village elders, the local government, these are the stakeholders at local level. So with their participate, because it is the school belongs to them, it's not belong to us. We are from outside. We are going there to support. So how can we work with the local community of these stakeholders and involve them in their own development process? Like this is the strategy we follow, public-private partnership model, where we bring in the potential partners here, like how a fist is much more stronger than the single finger. So by bringing these players together, we do the program on the ground by leveraging each other's the strengths, either in terms of the money, in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the material, in terms of the time, in terms of the ideas. So we leverage it the strength. And the second strategy we talk about to create self-sustainable models. So as I said, instead of starting the schools of our own, we work with the existing government schools. Whether you are there or not there after a certain period of time, the whatever the things we have done, those remain there in the school, the physical things. At the same time, the behavioral things also, the teachers, whether they are there or transferred to other locations also, they carry those skills and knowledge and values to other place also. The last strategy you're talking about leveraging on our own parental SRF company and the Shriram School's expertise in the areas of corporate communication, the finance management, or IT, quality management, and the academic expertise of Shriram Schools. So we leverage those things and process from our parental company SRF and the schools which are operational part of the SRF Foundation. These are the the strategies of the SRF Foundation it follows when doing the things on the ground. And this slide, just I suggest you that just to have a close observation and just to go through the which are the companies are partnered with us and governments. So if you see this slide, so one side we can see that the government departments of different states, and the other side you can see that the other private companies like Indigo Airlines, the Capgemini IT company is a MNC, Tetra Pak, Schneider Electric Company, HP, IBM, Brilio, the Times Group, the Cares, Signify is the earlier called Philips, the PNB Housing, Coca-Cola, Europe Sunrise, Amway. So these are the companies, these are the industry players, I can say that. So these industry players joined hands with us to carry their CSR by the SRF Foundation. So in this, the center of the slide, you can see that SRF Foundation acting as a conduit, as a bridge uh, between government department and the project sites on the ground. So it is a kind of collaborative approach, the public-private partnership approach I'm talking about. So today's context, 2021, 21, 22, this year, our CSR budget is almost all around for the year 32 crores. Out of 32 crores, so 21.5 crores is coming from our own parent SRF company, and other rest of the amount, almost all around 11 crores plus, coming from the partners for this year. So like that, this annual budget it will grow. When we started the program in 2009, our annual budget was just 60 lakhs, and today is 32 crores. So when the company is growing, its CSR contribution also grows, and the foundation is doing good job. Its partnerships with others also will increase. So because of these two reasons, so our reach has been spread to 24 locations. Our budgets also scaled up from 60 lakhs to 32 crores. And our team also, today in the foundation, we have 150 member team. Out of 150 member team, around 30 people operates from the head office. The remaining 120 people spread across the 24 project locations. So this is how the organization has grown in last 12 plus years in the portfolio wise, as an organization, as an institution with a capable team and the systems and the process, and also the number of partners and our reach, everything is has been scaled up to this level. Then you can question will comes there, why do others collaborate with us? So it is not mandatory for us to work for others. At the same time, seeing the opportunity, SRF Foundation being an independent entity, it is a registered society as per the Societies Act 1860, registered society. So this society, independent organization, not necessarily restricted to only the SRF CSR, but we're building the other partners. So why do others collaborate with us? So from that perspective, I'm saying that one is our capability. So our when I say capability, that means operational excellence, the team what we have, and the CSR councils which we have formed at the plant location to execute the programs on their own also. This is the capability, and also talk about the credibility of the organization. When I say credibility of the organization, the leadership, the promoters family, the institutions, they have their own kind of name and fame in the investor circle and the general public as well. among the student community, so that also when it's the moment you say that SR Foundation is belongs to a group which manages the Lady Shriram College, Shriram College of Commerce, and the DCM, SRF, and kind of thing, the people easily connect. That is the credibility of the organization, how the organization was known for the setting up the good education institutions, or setting up the running the good business and kind of thing. That is the reason. And communication, we extensively use the social media, the TV platform, news and publications by following the thinking, doing, and communicating. We call it as the TDC, giving the equal weightage for the all these three elements. Other than those three things, the credibility, capability, and communication, but also because of these are the themes and we address as a part of the program. So from here, this from perspective, one is about girls' education. As per the like a Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which was the national priority program. So because that is one of the reasons, digital-based education to make the education suitable to 21st century, and we train the teachers and we provide the digital-based learning opportunities for the children by providing the equipment, all those things. So that is another reason. The future skills. When you say not only the what children are supposed to learn as part of the course of classic 7th, 8th, 10th, and the example I'm giving, but also how they can learn the things is going to be matter, are going to happen in down the next 5, 10 years of time. Those things also we teach to the children and the teachers. So we call it as future skills. Because of that reason also, so the collaborations are happening with us. The quality education and collaborations for the larger impact, the speed and the scale. So these are the things we do. Because of this, the others see the synergy and see the opportunity to work with us because of our very focused approach. And the education within the education also, these are the sub themes. So now I'm. This is the one part of the presentation I showed so far. Now I'm going to take you to the next part of the presentation, that is highlighting the what actually happens on the ground. Just look at this slide, what you can observe there. This is the mobile digital bus. So this initiative, we started collaborating with the HP as well as with the Indigo. So today we have 11 mobile digital buses with us. And these mobile digital buses, we run across 11 project locations. So where these digital buses, operates during the school hours for the school children, and also the educators. And second thing I'm talking about, after school hours for the youth. After school hours for the youth, to learn about the basic computer skills and kind of thing. And when we talk about general community in the villages, for them also we use this bus. At the back end of the bus, you can have a big TV screen where you can showcase the films also, where people can sit at the back end and stand and watch those awareness activities and the documentaries and the videos, those things. So this bus addresses the needs of the school children, teachers during school hours, and the youth after school hours, and general public in the late evenings when we screen the videos or films or documentaries at the back end of the bus projected outside. So these are the 11 buses are there which are operational. And the understanding with HP is different, understanding with the Indigo is different. That you may ask the question how that is different kind of thing. I will give the question or session. So this is the within the bus. In the bus, you can see that we have the computers equipped, and so children. You can see here the children are practicing using the computer systems. And also in here you can see that the children are attending the class where the teacher is taking the class. Especially during the COVID time, what happened? Simultaneously, the children who are attending the class in the bus and children who are at home, they also receive the live the telecast of the lesson through WhatsApp video. You know, so it is have children at their home, they can watch that lessons also. The third thing, we are recording those videos for the future use as well as. So these are the three things are happening simultaneously while we are using this bus and the smart board in the bus and engaging the children. This is about when the schools were closed because of the COVID lockdown, phase one and phase two, and almost all 500 days. The schools are closed, children are deprived of education. Is almost 500 days means 1.5 years. So during that time, and we ran the program called Mohalla schools. These are the schools close to their children's homes, following the COVID norms, engaging the local volunteers. We ran this Mohalla schools when the schools were shut and to ensure that learning is continuing among the children. Now the schools are opened across the country. They're operational for last couple of months time. This is also learning with COVID, these community libraries. We set up the libraries in the schools. When the schools are closed, the library is not able to be used. So what we did it, we took the library out and given these books to the children at their home and circulation mode, and they continued the education. This is the Kid Smart Centers. What we set up in collaboration with the IBM in few of the locations. This is the center for the young children, class one to class three children, and where the two children can sit together in the peer learning model and learning the basic concepts in language, maths, and science by in a game way method, and it gives the strong foundation to them at the early age. It's called the Kids Smart Centers. The same thing with the different other locations. These are the smart classrooms. So this is the one of the digital solutions we have. We set up the smart classrooms. It is a in a high school, the four classrooms we have the smart boards connected with a server system, and having the curriculum of class 1 to plus 2 level, and English language and other regional language, and where the teacher and students make use of this smart board beyond what they currently use in the blackboard or greenboard textbook. This is the additional tool they use it for the teaching learning purpose. This is another model, which is again it's called digital theater. We call it as. So there is a LCD projector and a desktop system with the content, and one classroom in the school was converted as a digital theater, and the classes will rotate to this classroom, and where we take the classes. Is another digital solution. This is the third one. We'll talk about the smart TV program. There is a smart TV program. So this is a low cost model. Is a bigger TV of 44 inches TV, and there is a tab in the hands of the teacher, and the teacher can mirror. So whatever the teacher can see in the tab, same thing can be mirrored on the TV screen, where they can see the things and learn. So this is the program is low cost mode. It costs around 50 to 60,000 rupees per one classroom. If you renovate the classroom also, it goes up to the 9,000 rupees per classroom, depending upon how many classrooms are there in a school, depending upon the budget, how much budget available, we can choose and pick up either one classroom or two classrooms or all classrooms, equipped with digital smart TV program, where the teacher source the content from the YouTube or educational apps or through pen drive, or the content loaded in the tab that also can be shown on the screen. So this is the same program in different other locations, how it has been set up, being used. This is the digital hub. Digital hub, what we created at a place called Mewar. where this is the training room facility, this one, where we train the teachers of that entire Mewat district on the how to use the computer systems, Google tools, and all those things. And the other three pictures are the digital theaters. The theater is the sense where we create the local content by engaging the teachers, record those content. That content also we make use wherever the smart TVs we install in the classrooms. So this content belongs to them, and taking the local examples, local curriculum, local issues, you create this content that being used for the classroom in the class by the teacher. These are called the InnoSTEAM labs. We're calling it as the InnoSTEAM labs, which is, you are all familiar with that the science labs in the schools, libraries in the schools. But this is you were not able to see that the InnoSTEAM labs are future skills labs. So this we set up, and here the children from class 6 to class 10, they learn about the future skills like the coding, app development, robotics, 3D printing, designing, carpentry. These are all not part of regular school curriculum, but when they come to this lab, they learn those things here. Future skills, the same thing in different slide here. And also they showcase these things to the best practices to the industry experts, other school students, and anybody, and what prototypes they have developed, and how the prototype is going to solve the today's social problems. Like there's a pollution in India, so especially in Delhi region. So how to address the pollution? There's a traffic issue. There's a water shortage issue. There is excessive rain issue. There is the needs of the differently abled people. So on different things, this future skills lab, the children can develop some solution to prototype based, and they can showcase to the external audience to get their opinion, to sell their idea, and the kind of they do that. This is a literacy program for the adults. We call it as the digital literacy. So learning about the basic computer skills using the social media, email ID, online payments. These are the things we teach the adults from the age of 15 years to 70 years old, and those who are living in the slum areas, disadvantaged areas, and kind of thing. So this is the program we do for them in Chennai, Bengaluru, Gurgaon, and Noida. This is about promotion of science education, and we do it two ways. One is by way of setting up the science labs in the schools, by way of training the teachers, by way of running the mobile science van, and to go to school and demonstrate science experiments. So this is another program we do. These are the science labs we set up in the schools. These are the teaching learning materials we prepare. Instead of buying and giving it to them, we may ask them to teach us to prepare, and we guide them, we train them how to prepare those things. These are the libraries we set up in the schools. This is teacher orientation and the subjects they are teaching. The same thing I'm talking about here. These are all government school teachers. And also we create the workbooks for the children. And these are the adding value to the textbooks what they have already. And by using this workbook, children can learn things in a joyful way. But also they know that where they are and where they are lagging, how to move forward. That is what we do take care of here. This is the headmaster's exposure visit. When you work with the government schools, the headmaster is the CEO of the school. So whether he or she have good talent, leadership talent, and kind of thing. So then they can transform the school, in a better way, and the school can do better job for the children. So here, what we do when you adopt a new schools, anything for doing this program, we take those headmasters to the schools already we have been working, and to showcase to them what we have done, how it happened, and let them understand those things. And because of that exposure visit, they understand these things, and in their schools they take lead and facilitate those things are happening there with our participation. These are the HM leadership workshops, and we train them and groom them on leadership. And we make them also sit in rows, and not rows and columns, like circle, half circle, and square, and they can see with each other and understand their problems, and so best practices. These are called Swachha Vidyalaya committees. So to promote the health and hygiene practice among the students, and also to make them responsible of maintaining the facilities given to the school, and also make them to come to the school neat and clean on daily basis. So we have these committees, and they have the certain parameters. They monitor these parameters by following the green, yellow, red colors, and use those colors, and also after the vision for the school, how they want to see that school they're nurturing. And also they have the Bal Sabha, there is kind of the students sitting and discussing about issues and problems, what solutions for that. The same program, you can see that guiding them, how to come to school neat and clean, and how to talk their vision for the rest of the children in the school. All we do there. There's a school twinning program between the children of the Sriram schools in Delhi and Gurgaon, and children of the government schools in Mewat. So they come together and they do the joint program, either like they're doing the dance or a skit or a quiz program or a sports program. So collectively they do the program, learning from each other. So the special coaching classes we do for the students before the board exams, and those who are the lagging behind the studies, for them we organize the special coaching classes wherever the need is there. And also we mobilize the out of school children, those who are not being to the school. We identify those children and bring them back to the school. This is preparing building as a learning aid, Bala, we call it as, how to transform the school and make them schools more dynamic, vibrant, and attractive place for the children. And their schools should be better than their homes. Because of that, children love to come to school. How we can do that? This also we do there. These are the drinking water facilities, what we provide to the children there in the schools. And this is again the physical transformation of the school building there, talking about. Then the sports for the development. When we say sports for development, we do two kinds of things. One is for the primary school children. We set up the seesaw, merry-go-round, the slides and swings and monkey bars, all those things. For the middle school children, we try to promote the badminton sports. So this is how we organize there in the school. And we also organize some events, it's like a Olympic model, kind of to collect the students from different schools and organize the event and the function there. Some athletics, apart from the other things what I mentioned earlier. This also we do there in the schools. This is another program we are doing, a nutrition education for the young mothers. So those who are nurturing the young children of 0 to 8 years old children, how they can take care of the children with nutritious food. Here an education also given to the young mothers to grow their children more healthy and balanced with food. This we do with the Schneider Electrical Company. This is called Basic Electrician Training Program. This we do by setting up these centers. Today we have 13 centers in 13 locations, and each center offers a course of 3 months for 30 students. In a year, we run the 3 batches in between 1 month gap. And once those finish this course, they can take up the job and migrate to elsewhere in the country as an electrician. And second thing is they can set up their own petty shop as an entrepreneur. And also they can work with a big contractor in the big cities like NCR region or any other big cities. They are working with the contractor. This also we do uh, with the youth vocational skills training program. Then also we talk about this is the practical examples we're talking about here. Then there is a we can also mobilize the students by identifying the youth and taking them into the course. And it is not they're aware of these things and kind of thing by do the pamphlet and going to the door to door survey and do these things. Yeah. Then we're talking about this is a spoken English program we do there at Mevat area. For the again the youth, those preferably the people who are going for the courses, sorry, the plus two course or graduation course, for them, learning English it is building their confidence levels and also their employability. This also we do it using the traditional method and using the technology. But it is the spoken English program. This one is about you talk of visitors from the developing countries. When different management colleges are there, when they do the executive MBA program or short-term courses kind of thing, they bring the people to the field to showcase to the face of program how it happens. Because of that, we also learn how we can learn from them as well. They are coming from the different countries, so we learn from them also how things are happening their places. It is a kind of a mutual learning. So they are learning from us, and we are also learning from them. Then also we do there. This is the you see. Last year we got the last before year, not last year. Is the award the government gave in 2019 they gave this award, but award belongs to 2018. This is the national award, first time government instituted, and we are one of the first recipients of this award. This is the very proud momentum for all of us. With a few other awards, recognitions received from the different other platforms also. This is the team which is running the show at head office and the field office. These are the key program people what I'm talking about. So while doing these programs, we are not only taking care of the Companies Act, CSR rules, but also like Right to Education Act, which talks about education for the children 6 to 14 of age group. So since we are working with the government schools, we are mobilizing out of school children. We are also fulfilling this act as well. So the Companies Act already I mentioned what we are doing. National Skill Mission to promote the skills among the youth. Program in aspirational districts, the districts which are lagging behind in the development in the country. There are 120 districts are there. We are there in few of those districts also. Digital India, the Niti Aayog Atal Innovation Mission that is called the Future Skills Program. Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, the girls' education. Sustainable Development Goals as per the global mandate. So that also we are addressing those things, working with the government schools and formal schools. So when we're doing something, we're not doing it blindly, but also we are doing by engaging by aligning with the other acts and the missions of the government. These are our enablers. When I say enablers, when you're doing the program, we follow the area approach. When I say area approach, so we go to a particular cluster of villages and adapt the schools and work there. We instead of spreading the too thin and kind of thing. So today we are 12 states are there, 480 schools, and each of the state at least two locations we are there, and each location a set of 10 schools, 15 schools, and where we work and develop the model and then showcase it to the rest of the world, and so other people can take it forward, replicating. Acting as a platform foundation between the government and corporates and local community. So as a playing a role of conduit, the holistic approach for the education, not just only the any piecemeal approach, address all the issues of the schooling, collaborations for the speed and scale, what we're talking about, working with the formal system, creation of self-sustainable models, replicable models, thinking, doing, and communicating. TDC is our mantra while doing planning, execution, and communicating with other stakeholders. So I stop it here. This is a brief about the SRF Foundation, its journey, what we have been carrying across the 24 locations. So I stop it here. Just we can take 5 minutes the break. Then again, now exactly 3 o'clock, 3:05, we can catch up. It's a bio break.
Reality.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, this is the time now for the question and answers, and so the floor is open. Where is the link? No, make it bigger. Okay. Yes, yes. Yeah, just a minute. Are you able to hear me? Cannot start video. So video it is not starting. Um, दूसरा वाला जो उसको close. The other one we have to close. The other. Yeah, anyhow, the video is not fine. Just here we can carry on. Yeah, please, please. Yeah, it is open to the floor. People can pose the questions either in chat box or orally can they can ask. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. So first question is how companies should treat capital expenditure under CSR.
Okay. So the capital expenditure, it was not allowed before recent amendments of the CSR, which came into effect from the 22nd of January 2021. So prior to that, capital expenditure was not allowed as part of CSR. Now, as per the new amendment rules, what it says that companies can take care of capital assets, but not directly by the company, but the agency which is operating the charitable organization. So, which can take the, for example, we are there as a foundation. Otherwise, ABCD organization, any society, a Section 8 company kind of thing. So they're setting up any schools for the needy people, So where they need to purchase the land, they build the building. Either they have set up any training centers or hospitals or Anganwadi centers or anything which is required the capital asset in terms of the land or buildings or the mobile buses or anything else. So that is allowed, but not by the company directly owning them, but by the charitable organizations, which are the implementing organizations. Hope you got the clarity, Nikita.
Yes, sir. Sir, and the next question is how CSR audit can be conducted and whether audit report can be made public.
So when you say the CSR audit, so we don't say CSR audit kind of, it's like an impact assessment. When you say impact assessment, it was not there earlier also. It was if somebody is doing it, they can do it as a based on their interest and kind of thing. Again, as per the new CSR rules and norm reforms kind of thing, amendments, it says that, just a minute, there is some work is going on, some other floors, the sound is coming here. So when you say any project which is having the budget of 1 crore and beyond, that project has to be assessed by the third party agency. That is the one thing. And second thing, if any ongoing programs are there, which are programs of 3 years in nature, and they also can be done the impact assessment by engaging the third party. Earlier it was not there. Now they made it is a mandatory. And also while doing assessment also, it should not be going beyond 5% of the total CSR budget or rupees 50 lakhs. So whichever is the less, we have to follow that, but not beyond that. So that is the condition of the amount you are going to spend for the assessment point of view. But which projects have to do assessment is the minimum 1 crore rupees budget is mandatory assessment. And even below that also, if you want to do, you can do it. No, there's no harm on that.
Sir, and the next question is how much is required to be spent per year on CSR activity?
So the CSR activities spending is that, as said, the 2% of last 3 years, the average 2% of last 3 years average profit. So year 1, year 2, year 3, and club together and divided by 3 years. Whatever the profit, average profit comes from that 2%. That is the CSR spend one has to do, and while spending it, and by end of 31st March, the company has to utilize that amount and done the program. Earlier, if you have not spent it, you can give the reason why you are not able to spend, because we can give the reasons of whether we are not able to find the partner, or we are not able to find the problem, the project idea, or XY reasons. You can give that is enough. Now, what the new amendments says that if you not able to utilize, spend that money by 31st March, then next within 1 month of time, that means 30th of April, of the year, next year, so you have to deposit that unspent money into the especially created a new account called unspent CSR account. You deposit that amount in that account and use it for the next 3 years. So if even after 3 years also, if we don't utilize that amount, that money goes to the any of the funds set up by the government of India, like PM Relief Fund, the Ganga Jal scheme, the PM Cares Fund. So like that, some funds the government has been created. So this fund can automatically goes to those funds after 3 years.
So we don't have further questions. So if you want to discuss something else, you can, sir.
Yeah. When you say, I'm not seeing the participant, they're not here. What is it? There is just I encourage the people to post the questions on chat box also. It is because you say 300 people, 300 people, certainly they may have the people questions. If that means otherwise they are just silent.
Sir, actually, they can't join through Zoom. That's why you can't see them.
Acha, 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 acha. Okay, that is the reason. Okay.
Yeah.
No issue. So when I come to the doing the other things, while doing the implementation of the program, how do we implement the program? So what are the options are there for the company? The company can implement the program by having its own CSR arm. That is the one way one look at it. The second thing is that the company can engage the third party agency. This is the thing. And the third thing is that the company can implement the program directly on its own without having its own body, a third party agency, but it can implement its own directly. These are the three choices available for the organization. When I say three choices are available, so which one is the preferred choice? So one of the recent surveys done by the CSR box or NGO box, what it says that 45% of the companies, when they did a kind of survey around the top 300 companies of the registered in the BSc or NSC, so they did a survey. 45% of the companies are doing having their own CSR foundations, like SRF is having the SRF foundation, Airtel is having the Airtel Bharti Foundation. Reliance has Reliance Foundation. So Ambuja Cement has Ambuja Cement Foundation. Then we're talking about Bhartiya Dalmia Company, Dalmia Foundation. So like that, 45% of the companies have their own the foundations, and the remaining 55% companies. So they are doing their own or they're engaging the third party agencies. That maybe there may be societies or trusts or Section 8 companies set up by somebody else. Through them, they're implementing the program. In the case of SRF Foundation, we see that SRF Foundation is a CSR arm of SRF company. It is taking care of our own company CSR. When we are working for the other companies like IBM or HP or Indigo or Airtel, so we are third party for them. So we are doing the program for them. Yes, so this is the way one has to choose the institute to execute the program. Second thing, while you are implementing the program, which are the themes you have to choose? As per the company rules, Schedule 7, there are 12 themes have been given. So companies have the choice whether they can choose all the 12 themes, or they can choose the themes of 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, like that. Or they don't choose any theme, or simply write a check and give it to the one of the funds set up by the the government of India. So this is the options are available with the companies. But mostly the companies have to utilize the opportunity of doing things on their own because this is the option given to them by the government. So when you are doing this, the intention was the intention was that when you are doing the program on your own, so government expects that since you are good at running the business, when you're running your own business, you are good at uh, why can't you do the CSR by applying the management practices, by applying the technology, by applying the ideas? You can create a solutions for the current problems. So those solutions can be the scaled up, by the government, by the other NGOs, by anybody else per se. That is the idea. So this is the original intention. But some companies think other way around. Why all this the nuisance and nonsense and kind of thing? So government can increase the tax, and we pay the tax, and government it is a government's job to take care of the welfare of the people. That is how they think of some companies. Some companies think this is an opportunity for them to work upon and to drive the initiative by designing the solutions. So this is while choosing the CSR program, they have to choose the themes of their choice, and or they can give the fund to the government directly without doing anything. That they can do that. But what research shows that most of the companies prefer to do the program instead of contributing to the funds to the government. While doing the program also, based on their core business, they choose and pick up the themes. Let's say core business, like health companies, pharma companies, they try to do the CSR in the area of health. You know, like that. For example, the companies are there, the IT companies. They do the CSR in the area of using the technology for the education, technology for the health, technology for the financial literacy, technology for the any science-based education, anything which is a technology-driven kind of thing. They the focus. When you see the manufacturing companies, mining companies, but they don't restrict to their own thing, one kind of activity, one kind of thing. They do all kinds of activities demanded by the local communities where this manufacturing plants or mining areas are there. They choose all the themes. That is how they do the thing. When come to the financial companies, so those financial companies, they prefer to do the CSR programs, especially the women empowerment, financial literacy, lending, those kind of things. They do that. So this is the how the companies choose the themes based on their core business, because they have some knowledge, because they have some understanding. That is how they choose those things. They work upon that. Other than this, also the government PSUs are there. The PSUs driven by the where they are located, all themes, but also most of the things they do for the national flagship programs, either for the Ganga Jal scheme program, or the talking about Beti Bachao Beti Padhao program, or the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel project there in Gujarat. So any program, Swachh Bharat program, so any government flagship programs are there. So they fund those kind of programs, and also they have the political bosses. The political bosses also tell them that you take care of some recommendations they give, source agency, source of place, source project kind of thing. So they are where the projects are driven by the themes are driven by the flagship programs of the government, the political bosses directions, and the places where they're operating. So that is how the themes being chosen by the companies based on the core business, based on the PSU, non-PSU, based on the political bosses, and also based on the like SRF is a promoter family. So they are passionate about the education and skilling. So like that, the management of the company, what their thought process. So whatever we do on all those things should be within the boundaries of schedule 7 themes given there. That is the non-negotiable thing. One has to follow and do those things. Yeah. And also sometimes the MNCs are there. When I say MNCs, the MNCs which are operating from the foreign countries, and they have the global foundations. When they have the global foundations, they also have the global mandate. When they have the global mandate, they driven by the global mandate, they customize their programs to the Indian conditions. Following Schedule 7, they do the things. Sometimes the small companies are there, the small and medium companies. Their budgets are very minuscule, very small amounts. So they can't do the things on their own. It is not worth for them also. What they do, so they give this fund to the aggregators like the FICCI or CII or NASCOM or ASOCHAM or the CAF India or some aggregators are there. So they give the money to them, and they are the people take care of that money and execute the programs for them, either directly or through some other agency also. They do that. So like this, MNCs, promoter-driven companies, small and medium companies, and the PSUs. So they engage the agencies, they identify the themes and work upon. This is the another perspective. There is one more thing we talk about whether it is good to do the program quantitative or qualitative. That is the another perspective. So some people are concerned about they want to do the program more quantity, more they talk about the numbers, they talk about the reach. Some companies focus more about the what is it called quality. So they don't talk about the numbers and all those things. So they talk about the how they can do the programs in a very intensively, qualitatively, with the high quality kind of thing. They are not bothered about the numbers going everywhere, doing many things and kind of thing. I'll give example also. So like companies like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Nestle, Hindustan Unilever Limited. So which are the companies which are the B2C companies, business to direct customer. So they are very much conscious about their branding. So such companies, what they do, they are not confined to their CSR program at a specific location of 1 or 2 locations and kind of thing. So they do the program at pan-India level, all the states, all the union territories. But the reach point of view pan-India, but the actual, whatever the CSR budget available, which is thinly spread, choose that one particular activity rather than going into more deep and in-depth and kind of thing. For example, I give example of school education. When we do the program, we do the qualitative program addressing all the gaps in the system. If any of the B2C company, they are doing school education program also, they don't do everything. They can pick up one thing. For example, construction of the toilets. The same thing they can do across the country in selected schools. They may be doing 500 schools, but they can do the across pan-India level, every state, they can choose 50 schools or 10 schools or 25 schools. But they spread across the country, and they talk about we have been the pan-India presence. And that gives them to the mileage also as well. So that is how they do the CSR program, especially the B2C companies. And other than the beauty summer companies, they are not bothered about the numbers and all those things. So they just focus on the just only what they call it as quality. Very in depth and holistic, and in one or two the locations they do that. That is the quantity versus the quality. And next thing we are talking about, within the company, who decides the CSR programs, and who decides the locations where to operate and kind of thing. So when you say that where to operate the program, again this is a different kind of experiences. The one thing is that the places where the companies are there, for example, mining and manufacturing companies, they try to do the CSR around the place where they are operate. But other companies, other than the mining and manufacturing companies, I'm talking about service companies. The service companies are B2C companies. So they don't have any particular location they are operating kind of thing. So they are spread across the country being a service agency, like banks. Example I'm giving that. Like the product companies. What are the examples I given earlier? So they do programs at pan-India level, but everybody don't do the pan-India level. And also some other things, some companies, they proactively engage the employees as the volunteers, apart from what the contributions they make. If the employees as a volunteers, they have to work in the field, you know. So what they have to do, here I'm talking about, they try to prefer to the programs very close to their offices, within 15-20 kilometers radius. For example, if you see Gurgaon, Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Chennai, these are the bigger metropolitan cities. Most of the service companies' headquarters are there in those places. And if they have the employee engagement as a strong component in the organization, they try to do the programs close to their operational area, the offices. So, where there is an issue, the problem of plenty. For example, in Gurgaon, maybe example, Gurgaon is the Singapore of India. If we come here, you can see that a lot of IT companies are here. A lot of the manufacturing companies in Maneshwar, they are there. The lot of other companies like this one, export companies, they are there. If they have to do the CSR, their employee engagement component also, if everybody is doing in the Gurgaon, what happens? There's a problem of plenty in the same people, say everybody is coming and doing kind of the same school, same hospital, same Anganwadi centers, example. At the same time, sometimes there is an SEZ area, like a place called Bharuch in Gujarat. So there is an industrial belt, Ankleshwar. There is a Dahej. There are so many industries are there in that SEZ area. So where the companies are doing the CSR there, so what happens? Everybody goes and work in the local area, do the program, So then again, there is a problem of plenty. So one has to be at the same time, you see across the country map, most of the CSR is happening western part of India, southern part of India, and the central part of India, especially north central. If we talk about northeastern states, eastern states, and extreme north states where the CSR spending or the projects are limited or restricted. That is the one kind of imbalance. One can see that. So the CSR execution started in the 2014 onwards. So now we are 8 years plus. In 8 years plus journey, the research shows that this is a concentrated in selected pockets of the country. And other parts of the country, as I mentioned, those places, eastern, northeastern, extreme north states, and within this other country also, the aspirational districts, there are 120 districts are there. They are not as developed as compared to other districts. We are in India, we have more than 750 districts. These 120 are the least developed. That's why the government of India wants to give them more focus in those districts, and they are named as aspirational districts. So in those places, the CSR currently it is not there in all the places because these are the remote districts. These are the not connected with the highways. These are the tribal districts or desert area districts. You know, so these are the districts where the focus is not there. So that is another area is concerned when if you want to look at it. So this is the thing when you talk about choosing of the geography. The company can take a call. You know, how can we choose the place where the need is more compared to the place where the resources are plenty and people are good and nice, they're developed kind of thing. And within the company also, who does this, who monitors the program, who takes the call and kind of thing. As a part of the CSR rules, there is a CSR committee in the every company board. That company, the CSR committee has to take a call and plan the things and review and decide the project allocation, geographies, all those things, and submit to the board. Board can give the approval. Then formal approval once you receive, we can do the program. But CSR committee, how many times it meets? You know, in any company board, if they meet maximum 4 times, once in a quarter. When board meets also, so the CSR is just a very small thing in the entire business, the entire turnover of the business. The CSR will maybe 0.1% or 0.2%. Remaining 99.9 or 8% in their core business. And they have many other committees also. So the kind of time the CSR committee can give and work really kind of thing. So they are the people, as a compliance part, they are the people take decision making kind of thing. But otherwise, to prepare the CSR strategy about the selection of the geographies, identification of the themes, allocation of the budgets, reporting to the committee and the board, and doing the impact assessment, and submitting reports to the MCA end of the year. All these things are taken care by the dedicated team appointed for this purpose, like the CSR team. If the company, for example, the companies which are doing the CSR program through third-party agency, in that situation, they have the people of 1 or 2, 3 people in the company as a CSR team, and they are the people drive the program. If the company is having its own foundation, in such case, they don't have any team in the company roles, but they have a team in the foundation. And where the foundation is, if it is implementing organization, they can have the huge team. for the project specific to execute the programs. That is the difference. And also the budget, the allocation, if it is the case of foundation take responsibility, all the things that I mentioned. If there's no foundation, that the CSR team in the company, they are the people take care of the all the things. So that is how it happens when who does it kind of thing. And also there is a 5% of the budget allowed for the admin cost. That means the CSR team is there in the company to look after the CSR strategy, reporting, allocation, and the teams and monitoring all those things. Whatever the team is there, their expenses should not go beyond the 5% of the total CSR budget for the year. So that control they have to follow. That is the another thing one has to look at it. So other than this, you will also ask one question. For example, in the case of SRF Foundation, when you are doing the CSR for our own company, CSR for other companies also, the CSR audit for our own programs, we do the audit by engaging the third party. The partners who are there, they also depute the third party agencies to audit their programs, which we are implementing. When they audit two things. One is the program, what we did on the ground, its impact. The second thing is about the budgets, how the budgets utilized, whether the budgets are being utilized as per the agreed budget line items, whether they are overspent or underspent. If they are too much underspent, they can ask why it is underspent. If it is overspent, why it has gone, we have to seek the permission to do that. And also they do that and how the bills submitted, either they're following the standard operating procedures, GST, taxes, and all those things. And also they talk about report submissions. And as per the agreed terms, as per the MOU signed with them, there are quarterly utilization certificates and seeking the next installment of the budget. And also utility certificate should be certified by chartered accountant. And also any interest earned, that the money also should flow back to the partner's budget to the project. Here in this case, sometimes partners ask the third party. So in our case, the project is big enough, is a multi-year project, multi-crore project. The partner asks us to create a separate bank account. So instead of depositing the project budget into our own general account kind of thing, they ask us to create separate bank account and deposit the amount in that account, and we should not misutilize any cash flows. That budget belongs to them. If there is for example, last year, the COVID was there. Because of the COVID, lot of projects were got affected. So we are not able to do the program also on the ground because schools are shut. The budget should be remain there as a cash flow in the account, rather than you're using that amount for some other purpose. But you are not able to do the activities of the same project kind of thing. So keep those things in mind, and also generate the interest also, what interest you are earning. Says that to create separate bank account. It is not for every company, but especially the bigger company, bigger project, bigger amount, such cases only we create separate bank account. Otherwise, so general account is there where we pull the resources. For example, today we have 10 different corporate partners are working with us. Out of 10, only for the two companies, we created separate account. That is one for the Indigo, other one is for the Cab Gemini. The Indigo budget is around 20 crores for the 3 years, 5 locations, and the Cab Gemini project is almost all 20, again at 20 crores. This project. So in such case, we create separate account for the Indigo CSR program and Cab Gemini CSR program. But remaining 8 partners are there. Their budgets are ranging from the 20 lakhs to 1 crore, 1.5 crores. So for them, we don't create the in separate account. So when they do the CSR audit, so it happens audit at a program level, audit at the finance level. If there are any discrepancies there, so they can identify those things and ask the explanation. The explanation is the genuine. They accept it. If it is not the genuine explanation kind of thing, if there any malpractice, such case they take a call whether they want to continue the partnership or not, depending upon that. So that they do. That is the financials audit and the program audit, choosing of the themes, doing the quantitative and qualitative, and the team which takes the responsibility of the strategy, the designing, the monitoring, and evaluation, whether it is the CSR team in the company or the CSR foundation. This is how the things happen. And also, when we are doing the CSR, you only the financial contributions is counted as the CSR. You can't say that X number of my employees giving their time, giving their knowledge, giving their service, that we are monetizing it, and we are deducting the thing from the CSR budget supposed to spend, which is not allowed. It is done only in terms of the allocation of the real-term finances. And also the recent amendments talks about earlier days, CSR was applicable to the spending in India. Now they have given some relaxation, especially the sports field. If any athlete or any teams which are participating at a global level in the competitions are going to the global level for any kind of training purpose, so that expenses also are allowed as CSR this time, but it was not there earlier. Only sports case is concerned, this is allowed. And next, other point I'm talking about, doing the CSR in local area. It defines in the CSR rule says that you should give the preference to the local area. What do you mean by local area? So it is not that, for example, wherever you are operating, that local area of 10 kilometers radius, we can do, but not necessary you have to concentrate there. You can go anywhere in the country, in nook and corner. You can go to extreme like Ladakh, there in Ladakh region, the Union Territory now, or a Bhuj, there in Gujarat, or some of the border to the Pakistan and Rajasthan area, or it is the extreme south part, or northeastern part, or central, anywhere in the country, within the country, you can go, not necessarily just only confined to the place where you are operation kind of thing. So that also this act allows, but in the practice, all companies are not. They prefer to do things which are close to them, easy to visit, easy to monitor, easy to engage their employees, easy to showcase to their customers. They prefer to do that where they are located, where they are operated. So this is the other thing. Next, also there is a question of the CSR awards. The CSR awards was not there earlier. This was started slowly. Today there are many platforms are there. Those platforms offers the awards, but all those awards don't have the sanctity because they charge the money for the award nominations and their judging of the projects and selecting on the merit and kind of thing, and the jury what they form and the method they follow to assess the impact of the project, all those things. It is not happening and with all the award givers. So some make awards which are very prestigious and kind of thing. They do very intensive kind of assessment and judge and give the award to the help people. For some people, it is a business. They do that, but one has to be conscious about where you are applying for the award and who is recognizing you. That one has to look at it. These are the other dimensions of the when you're implementing CSR program. One has to look at it. And also there is other thing when you're going to do down the program and implementing the program on the ground, the beneficiaries, like in the case of education, these are the children and the teachers. In the case of the health program, the community. In the case of the skilling program, the youth. In the case of women, the women, rural development, all the people in the village, and the government itself. So each one, they look at you differently. As you're supposed to do the CSR, you are doing the CSR. And so why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? You know, they put forward n number of demands, and you supposed to do, you do it. That means they see it as a not that somebody is coming and doing it for us. They don't value like that. They see that it is your need. That's why you are doing it here. Because of that, you do this, that kind of thing. They put forward. So this is how the perspective of the people with whom we work on the ground, and they have the huge expectations, and the expectations from the not only the local community, but also the expectations from the government department at the central level, at the state level, even at the district level, district magistrates also. Everybody have the eye on the pie. How can I get? This is the budget available and kind of thing. So that is how the things are happening in the CSR. But nevertheless, a lot of progress has been made and has been matured. And maybe in down the next 4 to 5 years' time, it goes to the next level. So I stop it here. And if any other questions are there, just feel free to just ask.
So we have some queries.
Please.
Yeah. First one is, will it be a good option to set up practice as a CSR consultant? Can you elaborate on the basic setup needed and how to get clients and expand practice in this area?
Okay.
You want some basic?
Yeah. Regarding the CSR consultancy point of view, I don't think so. It is a better idea. Why? Because the companies are capable of managing their own business, which is accounting 99.8%. and the CSR is just only 0.1 or 2% of the entire turnover. The question is that the company is managing the business of 99.99%. So can't they manage the 0.12% on their own? That is the one has to reflect upon. And the big companies which are having their own CSR foundations kind of thing. So already they have the in-house the capability and the strategy and priorities, focus all those things. And the companies which are small and medium, so they are there. So they may need some kind of help if they really wanted to do. Otherwise, they want to just give simply check to somebody else or go to an aggregator kind of they can do. Rather than that, I suggest that if any CSR the consultancy, unless until you are well connected with the CSR people in the industry, and especially the big brothers are there, the big brothers. So they are the people after the companies, they have to provide the consultation kind of thing. So either you can, if you set up a consultancy, then you can connect with the big brothers, or there's some agencies are there like Satava, there's an agency, the FinServ, there's another agency, there's a CSR Box, other agency. These are the private institutes set up by the people, but they are 4 5 years old and kind of thing. So they are the people also they give the kind of consultancy kind of thing. So that is it happens like that. But as an individual, if you want to do, my suggestion is no, don't go. Yeah.
Right, sir. So the next one is how to measure the CSR activity. Is it only the amount spent or the impact of CSR should be showcased?
What is the first sentence? Come back, Nitika.
So Shakun this side.
Huh.
So how to measure the CSR activity?
Okay. So how to measure the CSR activity? That is for that purpose only. They're saying that for example, we are doing education program. If you want to measure what outcomes, kind of thing. So we do X, Y, Z things, like I said, toilets, drinking water, library, labs, timing, what else, children leadership, all this we do that. But the end result, so how much new enrollment added to the school, how much attendance has been increased, how much learning outcomes have demonstrated, how the schools are fully equipped with the facilities. So how many children are continuing education? Those are the outcome measures. People can see that. Like somebody is doing the food distribution program. So what is the nutrition level of the children or the adults whomever they're feeding before starting of the project? So when after ending the project or mid of the project, they can measure it again. What is their the health status, nutritional status? So like that, whatever program we are doing that, so there should be a measurable outcomes. You have to keep in mind that at the end of the project you can measure it that whether you achieved or not achieved.
Right, sir. With this, we have taken all the queries. And in the end, I want to say, I want to give a formal vote of thanks from the CSR committee, ICI. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving the time and taking an excellent session. Thank you so much for enhancing our knowledge and giving the practical aspects on the CSR project implementation. Thank you, sir. It was an excellent session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shakun, thank you, Sonali, and other team members from the ICAI and all the participants. And I wish you all the best. At any point of time, if you want any kind of info, then feel free to reach me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.